Think of an elegant modern classic, where looks are every bit as important as performance. A name that was already famous before it played host to James Bond, twice. And if you had a company in mind, what would it be?
If I said Spirit Yachts, I bet you'd think of varnished wood, beautiful lines, classic styling, and good old-fashioned handcrafted workmanship. And while they're beautiful on the outside, on the inside, they frequently take you onto the next level. From classic styling to practical layouts, and others that are quite simply stunning. But if we're talking about their latest project, things have changed yet again. And the odd thing is that you might not have noticed. Because while Spirit Yachts' new R53 might look like a modern classic, her world's going to be very different. This is a 53-foot cruiser racer designed to play in the IRC fleet, and yet still look like her cruising sister ships. Really? Spirit have and continue to run very successful events that are as much a classic catwalk as they are a regatta. So why take on the world's plastic cruiser racers? What is going on at Spirit? Since their first launch over 30 years ago, and for a range that spans from 30 to 111 feet, Spirit have built two things above all else: stunning looks and immaculate build quality. These have led to a global reputation for a modest-sized yard set on an island in the middle of Ipswich. So when you say Spirit in the marine world, everyone knows what you're talking about. But the fact is that many of Spirit's owners come into the fold wanting an elegant cruiser, and of course that's what they get. But if they start to race, they get a taste of something else, and for some, this is the start of a transformation. And for one Spirit owner, the next step meant not just a new boat, but a whole new direction.
The first client is an experienced cruising yachtsman, had many different yachts over the years. He's already on his second yacht from us, but coming from a cruising background, the second yacht he wanted to be a cruiser and a racer. But after his first season, he realised that the compromise was too much, and he enjoys it more as a cruising boat, but wants to race it harder. It's quite a large yacht, so he wanted to go smaller, have less crew, and just dedicate that yacht to racing.
But this was just one owner. Spirit started to realise that there were more who were feeling much the same. So from there, it didn't take long before the company itself was asking whether it would be possible to create a Spirit yacht that could race against the wider fleet under IRC and ORC, especially as some of their yachts were already enjoying success in some of the biggest events.
So then we had our regatta in Guernsey, and we had gathered all of the owners together and had a question and answer session with them as to what it is they're looking for, what they would like. And then it became apparent that what they were really looking for is a pure race boat, not a compromise between a yacht that needed to also be a cruising boat some weekends and a race boat other weekends. And they were really keen to have one design that they could match race against each other, as well as a wider fleet.
That's really, I mean, in many ways, it's really weird, isn't it? Because so many people would think of, when they think of Spirit Yachts, they think of traditional looking cruising boats first, with a bit of fun racing.
Yeah.
You seem to have bred a group of customers who've now become rather interested in racing.
Yeah, I think we needed to separate. We found that clients were finding it too much of a compromise to race competitively with a boat that can also cruise. So we wanted to separate that. We've now got our cruise, race and power model line, and so our cruise, most of our inquiries that come in are for our cruise range, anything from 44 feet up to nearly 80 feet. So we wanted to offer a race boat that is a pure race boat, that will tick all the boxes and perform well.
So, before we get into the detail, this is what we're talking about. The Spirit R53. I'll pause for just a moment. Interesting, isn't she? No beamy sections aft, no bowsprit, no wide open cockpit, and no batteries of clutches. Just clean, sleek, elegant lines. Which makes me wonder if this is what you're expecting of an IRC racer.
When I think of IRC, the fleet that you're sort of aiming at, IRC or ORC actually, I tend to think of sort of plastic race boats or cruiser race boats. This is going to be it's going to stand out, isn't it, this boat? I mean, is that...
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, she's going to look modern classic. She's still going to look very Spirit. Our branding will be very recognisable in the design. But yeah, at another glance, you'll look at the deck equipment, you look at the square top main, carbon mast, and you will soon realise that actually there's been some changes.
Yeah, and will this influence, do you think there will be an influence in this? It seems like quite an extraordinary project to do. Do you think it will have a knock-on effect elsewhere in the business and how you build and design boats?
Yes, certainly. We're seeing that already. We've just taken an order for a new 78-foot yacht. He's aware of the work we've been doing with Jason Kerr and his team, and so now we're running a CFD study on the hull of the 78 to optimise that from the learnings we've had from doing the 53.
So the brief was to create a competitive design that retained the Spirit DNA. But there was one other key detail. The yacht also needed to be capable of being a one design.
The feedback we were getting from our existing client base is they wanted to race competitively against each other. We wanted to have our own class of yachts, and from a build perspective, we want to make it as efficient as possible so we can get more boats out more quickly. And with the first boat already sold and in build, then we want the second one to follow on swiftly behind it, so that once we've got two boats, you've got a race. If we can have a fleet of a dozen, even better.
Right, but you're not about to start setting up a big production line. I mean, all these boats that you build are going to be for customers. You're not building anything for stock.
No.
To get to this point was a big departure for Spirit Yachts, who commissioned Kerr Yacht Design to create the R53. And for the Ipswich-based company, it was a project like no other, with 2,000 CFD simulations, 500,000 computer processor hours, and 10 million hull and rig evaluations. So what has the Kerr office created?
So we're effectively class 1. It depends on where you are, what you're racing, but it's not going to be racing against TPs and fast 40s and so on. It's going to be racing against the production cruiser racers. It's going to be in that sort of performance cruiser racer sector. It's very different from a fast 40. You actually might be on corrected time. You might be okay. But the racing isn't that meaningful because they'll be going so much faster downwind. Because it's racing in handicap in IRC, we're able to not be super light. The boat's similar weight to a conventional Spirit of the same size, so we weren't pushing the weight down. And if you keep the weight up, that means you can then use a slightly more classic shape efficiently. Fairly early on, we found that we wanted to be we're around about 9 tons. It's not light, but it's not particularly heavy for a 53-foot boat either. And the boat heels over quite early, even in light winds and 8 knots of wind. It's got its transom almost touching the water. Keel and rudder is effectively modern race boat foils. The systems on the boat are modern race boat systems. So it's really the construction material of the bulk of the boat is classic, and the aesthetic is classic, but the sort of a lot of the functional aspects are not, and within the constraints of having overhang and moderate beam. This is the deepest we've gone on a race boat optimization project. So we previously did a 3-week very intensive hull optimization for the Fast 40 that was Invictus. So we ended up actually putting so much data through AWS that We ended up putting our own cost pricing up because we're competing with ourselves for resource. Amazon Web Services.
Why do you need to do all this number crunching? Why the sort of heavy processing? Are there that many benefits and gains that you've discovered through that? And presumably there are, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. Otherwise you would have gone and bought a set of splines and weights and just drawn it the traditional way. But where are you getting presumably there are gains, where are you getting them?
Well, I mean, just by way of comparison, we've done quite a lot of hull optimization on ships, and to most people the ships look the same. But we recently did one on a frigate where we managed to save 26% of the relative to a baseline that presumably the person designing the baseline thought that was the hottest thing around at the time. So it's amazing how much improvement you can get through shape. There's water's heavy and dense. If you can make the best of it, there's big gains to be made, especially on a displacement boat like this where you're actually pushing the water around. You're not skimming over the top of it.
But if you're still struggling to understand where she sits and who she's going to be up against, think of it this way. You're on the start line, you've got 15 seconds to go and you're winding up to full speed. Below you is an X562 and a Club Swan 42. They're fully on the breeze and climbing up towards you. Above you there's a Beneteau First 53 and beyond that a Jeannot Sunfast 3600. Everyone's looking for speed and height off the line. But you're different. Your boats are Douglas fir hull on Sipo mahogany frames. Slender and built to slice up wind. All your winches are electric, all the sail trim is hydraulic. And 5 seconds before the gun goes, the last of the sheet trim comes on to squeeze more power out of that square top main as the bows come up a few more degrees. Climbing from under the opposition and now at full speed and height, you're pushing that slender bow out in front. And with a wind against tide beat to the first mark, things couldn't be better.
So, back ashore, and to bring us back into the room, what does she look like as she's being built? Peter Martins gave us a quick summary of the process so far.
So, first things we sort of make up the frames, laminate all the sepia together on the flat bed we've got over there, and then we turn everything upside down and then start cladding it with the 30mm thick Douglas fir. And that's all wested together, all wested everywhere. We stagger all the joints, and then there'll be 2 layers of GRP go over it, and then a fill and a fair. Then we'll flip her up the right way.
Right. And that's how we see it.
And that's how we see it right now. Yes.
Okay. And so you took over this project because you say you're the interior guy.
I'm interior guy. Yeah.
When did you take over this project?
On the 5th of January.
Oh right. Okay.
This year.
Right. And when you say interior, tell us what that involves.
So basically all the joinery, all the bulkheads, all the lockers. I fit the rudders. I didn't have much to do with the chain plates. Basically, any drawing that comes my way that's interior, I do it. Right. Yeah.
How different is this to the other Spirits, or is this very much the same process?
This is very much the same process. Yes, very much the same. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you do build the interior, you sort of start at one end and work your way through to the other, or how does the process work?
I'm currently working on the forward cabin, but I've just had the drawing releases for the aft port cabin. So when drawings are released, then I jump into the next cabin.
Right.
Yeah.
And carbon and wood goes really well together. They've got very similar strain to failure, and so we've done the keel structure, the mast support structure. It's carbon. There's a halyard tray, which is not very structural, but that's in carbon as well. And things like the forestay chain plate is carbon straps, and shroud chain plate is carbon straps. So it's really just a few kilos of carbon has a big effect on the time and complexity of those parts.
Someone who knows Spirit Yachts really well is sailmaker John Parker. Since the company's launch, he's sailed every Spirit. So how does he see the R53?
I think it's a big change.
Really?
So we've got, as you've seen with the plans, we've got a much bigger fore triangle. And I think that's going to give us a boat which much better balance. And I think, as you'd expect on a race boat, a proper race boat, we've got access to we're going to have all the sail controls that we would need. We're not going to be compromised in the way we handle the sails. As you know, we're going to be using structured luff, headsails, that's a big change. So we're going to have halid locks, not just on the jib, but actually we're going to have halid lock on the Code Zero as well. But on the jib we'll have a halid lock and then a very cleverly designed jib Cunningham system so that we're tensioning aloft from the tack. And we're seeing in our work to date with, we call these sails zero sag, we're seeing in our zero sag sails that you can have a 5% camber range from like a fully powered up lighter air setting. You can take about, by pulling and pulling on the structured luff, you can reduce the camber by about 5%. So that's big, that's a big range of gear changes you've got. And we hope, we haven't finalised numbers yet, but obviously we're hoping that we can deliver the boat with fewer headsails. Is that good for a sailmaker? I'm not sure. But
Yeah, you just done yourself out of a job.
exactly.
I mean, I noticed, and we sort of talked about it a bit, but I noticed that one thing that sets this boat apart is it's got transverse jib tracks for a start. I don't think we've seen that on a Spirit yacht before.
Absolutely correct. We haven't done it. We've always had longitudinal, and then as the client, once he admits he wants to go racing, we have to improvise some sort of in-hauler system, which is not ideal if you think you've got a beautiful timber deck and you've got an in-hauler system flying around, knocking bits out of the boat. So that's going to be really good. And Kerr, with their design of their system, we're promised that we'll have some movement in and out without having to alter the jib sheet tension. So that's going to be an uplift, make it much easier to, again, change gears.
I mean, it does sound like there's going to need to be a sort of a re-education, possibly, because there are a different set of controls that you're talking about from the traditional way of bringing the jib car back to open up the leech and the rest of it. It's a different way of changing gear now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be our role as the sailmakers for the project, and as each boat is commissioned. But
Spirit themselves are already talking about how much this might influence things that they do with future boats, future cruising boats, the style of that. Do you see a similar thing happening with the sail plan? Do you think this might be the beginning of maybe not a revolution, but a bit of a change to the approach that they have?
I think it's probably not for me to speak for the management of Spirit Yachts, but I think they're conscious of they're in a new era, and liaising, working with Kerr is an opportunity to uplift their product, their range of boats. So yeah, I think that will, moving forward, we're going to see some lovely boats racing and cruising. Yeah.
There seems to be little doubt that the R53 is a bold step for Spirit as they use their reputation for good-looking, exquisitely built boats to launch into a new area. But then again, when you look at the projects that they've been involved with over the years, they've never shied away from a challenge. Their P35 electric foiling powerboat is a good example. But when it comes to understanding where they're heading with the R53 and why they wanted to be there, it's easier to see the answers when you consider what she's been built to do. So if you're hiking off the start line and there's an elegant looking modern classic to windward with a deep varnish cockpit and coamings and with white sails and a large square top mainsail, it could well be the Spirit R53. And if it is, and based on the performance predictions we saw during her build, you're probably better off to leeward, at least for the start.